6 is check your interest level. This means you need to become really self-aware before you attend anybody's rush. And by that, I mean, I see on social media, and I have watched and studied some of these videos because I'm a social worker. I like to get to the psychology part of why people make decisions, right? So I've seen a lot of women and men renouncing their membership in Black Greek letter organizations. And for me, if God has told you to do something, you need to follow the voice of God, because at the end of your life, you have to, sit before judgment and account for what it is you have done. But I truly believe that God spoke to the founders and said, hey, you guys create this organization for social uplift, to be champions of social justice. And that's what those 22 women did, in my view. And I support that. But I do think that people, before they join, before they go to rush, they really need to check their heart posture. Because joining a sorority or a fraternity is not just I just woke up and just said I want to do it. I didn't really know what it was. No, it is a process that you should research, that you should take a deep dive into. You should ask around. You should seek out mentors and individuals who can tell you about the organization. Thank God for YouTube. Thank God for TikTok. Thank God for Instagram, because now so much is available. These sororities have major websites. Many of them have documentaries. I love the bond that I share with my sister in Delta. I've been a Delta for nearly 24 years. I love that I can talk to my uncle who's a Q, and we have had fun memories together. So for me, it is something very personal and something that, God has called me to be a part of. That's how I see my membership in Delta. But I would truly say, if you are unsure, if you do not know what you want to do, whether you want to be Greek or whether you don't want to be Greek, or you're unsure about some of the processes, just don't go to rush to later regret it or to later renounce it, because a lot of work goes into reviewing packets. If you don't want to be a part of the organization, you don't have to. It's optional. It's not a choice that people are putting on you and saying, you just have to do it. You don't have to do it because your parents did it. You don't have to do it because, that's the expectation in your community. So make sure you're thinking about what you actually want to contribute to that sorority, what you bring to the conversation. And if you don't feel like you have any of that, or if you feel like it's pressure from your family, you just don't want to do it, don't attend it. Because I think it's really almost sad in a sense to see so many people have gone through these processes of becoming members of these sororities only to renounce 1 year, 2 years later. It's a lot of effort, intention, emotions, and frankly, it's a lot of money that sort of just, they've wasted in their pocket. So it's a mutual investment. So make sure you are checking your interest level and checking your heart posture before you attend anybody's rush. And if you don't know what you want to do, take time to research it. And if you just feel like being an independent person and living your life is what you want to do, it's nothing wrong with that. My next point 7, is do your research for Pete's sake. And this, again, I'm going to go back to my previous point. I think a lot of people are renouncing because they really didn't do any preliminary research. Because had you researched these organizations a little bit, you would kind of see the purpose of them. I understand if you're saying we've steered and strayed away from the purpose, because that could be true of anything, and everything is not going to be ideal when you are working with human beings. Human beings are not perfect. But I do think the continued conversation, and there's a continued need for everyone to still work together. But before you go to anybody's rush, do your research for Pete's sake. Okay, YouTube will tell you every single thing you need to know. There is a beautiful documentary out there about AKAs. I'm a Delta, and I watched that documentary. I watched it because it's not just about AKA history, it's about Black women's history. I have a master's degree in Africana Women's Studies. When I see people, when I read textbooks and have read textbooks when they talk about social change that happened in the 1900s at the turn of the 20th century, they're talking about Black women. And most of those Black women were members of Delta, Sigma Gamma Rho, Zeta, AKA. So I take learning the history of these organizations very seriously. It's not just about becoming a member, it's about learning your own history as a Black woman in America, and even from an international perspective. So do like my line sisters and I did. I still have my little notebook that I created when I was interested in becoming a Delta. I knew I was a Delta debutante, but they didn't tell us a lot about, the inner workings of the sorority. So I bought the book In Search of Sisterhood the summer before I joined Express Interest. I read that book. I started to learn who the founders were. I wanted to know what I was talking about before I sat down before these women who I looked up to, in a sense. I wanted to be able to stand on my own. So prepare, because it's important for you, just like you would prepare for a job that you are interested in. Prepare to be interviewed, prepare to get, to get the goal, or whatever that goal is. So make sure you're doing your research, and then this way it will prevent a lot of confusion in the end. And if God still calls you to renounce, then okay, you renounce. But if you're doing that preliminary research and really understanding the bigger picture, that this is about Black history, Black women's history, all of those great things and ways that you can contribute in a positive way to social uplift, to social change, I think you will find that sororities are perfectly safe to join and are perfectly positive things for the Black community. Okay? Number 8. And this is a point that I often highlight when I'm talking to my social work students. You need to understand privacy and confidentiality. These processes, a lot of information is just out here online because, there's just so much. If you want to Google anything, you can pretty much find it online. And the same goes with a lot of the sorority information. A lot of stuff is online. But if you are a person who is seeking to express interest in joining one of these sororities, you don't have to go blast that to the whole world. Just kind of move discreetly. Keep things confidential. Share it with your parents. Hey, mom, dad, after all, they may be paying for it. My parents certainly paid for my sister and I, our whole process, they paid for it. But, share it with those people who are trusted. I wouldn't necessarily share it with everyone who is not anyone who is not a safe place for you, okay? Because you need to have a support system. So tell people like your parents, definitely tell your mama and your daddy, people who are going to be helping you with your application materials if you do decide to attend Rush. It's okay to be excited about it, but also make sure you keep a level of privacy, meaning you don't have to tell every single body, every single thing. You need to go on TikTok and YouTube posting, hey, you guys, I went to this. You don't need to do that, particularly for Black Greek letter organizations. I think for other sororities, their information is more out there, but ours, some of the traditions it's just important to keep things sort of confidential, all right? And lastly, and this is really important to me, and my mom shared a great story with me when I was growing up. She said that she was a part of a social club. I'm gonna get to my point, but she said she was a part of a little social club in our hometown way back in the 70s. And these women went around each month to a different social club member's house, right? They had like a luncheon or they had their monthly meeting. When it was time for those women to come to my mother's home, and at the time my mother was living with her parents. She was a young adult. She was a teacher. She was living with her parents on my grandparents' almost 100-acre farm, but it was not up to par, farm which we still own. My mother said the women in the little group that she was in, they said they didn't want to come out to the country. And so my mother told me this story, and she said, I had one friend who was really my true friend in this whole little social club, and she was the president. And when they said that they wouldn't come to my house, and I had been to all of their houses, and they wouldn't come out to the country, to my parents' house, they said to me, through their actions, that I wasn't good enough. And she said, my friend who was the president, she stepped down in protest. And she said that lady was my friend. And so when my sister and I began to express interest in these different organizations and things of that nature, my mom would often share that story. Not a lot, but she shared it. And she said, don't let these things change you. Make sure you stay rooted in who you are. And that leads me to my 9th point. Keep Christ as the center of whatever it is you are doing. So you could be applying for a job, you could be applying for a Delta, applying for whatever it is you're applying for. Your root, your foundation has to be centered in God. Because if it's all out here in these other things, then you will get easily distracted. You will get easily turned away. When these young women started Delta Sigma Theta, when they started these sororities, there was a lot of social unjust going on, unjust discrimination taking place. There was discrimination, there was lynching, there was racism and sexism. And so these women had to stand up for something. That's why they started these nonprofit organizations, to build up the society, to showcase and highlight the importance of Black women's activism, right? To say that we won't stand in the back when we're trying to get our voting rights. We're going to stand beside you. We're not standing in the back behind our counterparts. No, we're going to stand beside you. And if not, be in front of you. So that's what it was about. And those women were essentially, in a sense, powerless because they didn't have a lot of financial capital. They definitely, Black women and Black people certainly weren't valued during this time. But what they did have was their faith. So I say to you, if you are interested, whether it's in a job opportunity or even just the sorority, that stuff is minuscule in comparison to the bigger picture of your life. Keep Christ at the center. And when Christ is at the center, it will dictate how you treat other people. It will dictate how you love other people. It will dictate how you love yourself and how you treat the organization when you become a member of that organization. So a lot of people are like, well, this led me astray. This led me astray. It wasn't the organization. It was you losing your focus on the main thing. So it leads me back to my point. Keep the main thing the main thing. Focus on God. Focus on academics. Focus on your happiness. Focus on your mental health. Focus on being a better human being. And when you bring that to the table, those women, whatever group it is, whether it's Delta, aka Sigma Gamma Rho Zeta, they're going to see that brilliance in you. They're going to see the God in you, and they're going to say, aha, that's who I want. That's who I want to be my sister. That's who I want to stand next to me when we talk about this social activism, when we talk about these issues around police brutality, when we talk about pay equity, when we're talking about, infant mortality issues and teen pregnancy, whatever it is. That's my soror. That's who I want behind me and standing beside me when I go to Capitol Hill to advocate for what's right for humanity. So again, focus on being a better human being. Focus on giving things up to the Lord. Put your intentions and desires before the Lord, and He will bring them to pass. It worked for me, and I hope this message is helpful to people who are interested in joining a Black sorority. Remember, there are so many bigger pictures here, moving parts here. So keep those things in mind. I hope this is helpful to parents. Make sure you know what's going on with your children. A lot of these students come into my office, they just want to join this and that. And I try to be a guide to students and try to say, hey, let me steer you in this direction. I don't want people out here making, bad decisions or decisions that aren't fully thought out. So this concludes my video. I hope you found this video to be helpful. Share it with others who are interested in joining a Black Greek letter organization. This is not an endorsement of any sorority. This is not an authorized video of Delta Sigma Theta. This is just simply Dr. Shani sharing what it takes in a professional sense to express interest. Now, these things are recommended, suggested, but it doesn't mean this is going to help you or work against you. But these are just some tips like I would share, and I would hope that other people will continue to pass messages on and not gatekeep and help our young people who don't have access to Delta debutante, who don't have access to a mom and dad and uncles and aunts, because they come to me and sometimes students really don't know, and I want to be a force for good, and I want to be able to help others. Okay, you guys, share this video, give it a big thumbs up, and take care until the next time. Oh, and let me see if you want a part 2. What to wear to rush, what to wear to a job interview. I'll try to share more success tips on this channel. Take care and bye.